Welcome into Power Plays presented by Bet365. I'm Tim Kalinowski, joined by Nick Martin and Michael Leboff. We make up Line Change Action Network's NHL betting podcast, and the playoffs are finally here, gents. We already did our deep dives into the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, but now we have game ones this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We'll just snap it around here and do some best bets. No draft style. There's enough here that we can pick out and give people some nice things for the weekend. Finally betting some meaningful hockey. So Nick, I guess I'll send it over to you first. What are you looking at on this board?
Okay, my favorite from the Saturday is I like Gensel to go over 3.5 shots at plus 150. I had also posted Jarvis over 2.5 at plus 140 in the app, but now that that has moved down, I would say that I rank Gensel slightly above it. But I want to try to target Carolina's top line. They've been so dominant. I think everyone's expecting that the Carolina is going to own much of the play here and probably get upwards of 35 shots. But I do think the Isles will probably find a way to hang around and make it a competitive enough game that hopefully that'll mean big usage for those guys. I think home ice is going to be a factor here when the Isles don't have an overly compelling line to go head to head with them. Brendan Moore should be able to get some good usage for that top line, get some good offensive zone starts. So I want to target them. And like I said, I was pretty even on these two, but with the Jarvis price having moved down, I think plus 150 for Gensel to go over 3.5 is worth a play in game one. I think this could be a thing where that number ends up just not being there a couple games into the series and a couple games into the postseason for Carolina. So I want to target Gensel and that top line just dominating and continuing to pour shots on goal, which is what they've done to everybody recently. And then from the Sunday slate, I like the first period to go under 1.5 in the Caps game. It's out there at minus 115. I would play it down to minus 125. I just think that that is going to be the Caps avenue. We're going to see the games that the Caps make close here are going to be low scoring. And I think game one, first period, it's just going to be them trying to lock it down as much as possible as the Rangers kind of feel it out. So I think that that price is also a little too, it's just too much value to pass up. And it's same with the Gensel one. I think 4 games into the series, there's a chance that that number is just not there if the series goes the way we kind of think it might. So I'd rather take a shot there than anywhere else in game one, and then yeah, see how the series gets going from there. But I think that that's a pretty good number for a playoff series involving the Washington Capitals. We saw the way that must-win game versus Philly looked. I think you just have to try to follow up on that, and that is with respect to the Rangers having a far superior offense. I do think the Rangers are going to pay off in this series as a huge favorite. But I think that the Caps avenue is going to be to make it into a rock fight, and that we'll see that in the first period.
Yeah, and I also think too, the route of that first period under is the Rangers as a big favorite kind of have the luxury of also being able to feel it out themselves. Obviously this Caps team has been playing playoff style hockey for a long time, so I certainly see the avenue there. Lebo, before you give your bets, I'll just ask you, does your outlook, your vibe on the 2 games Nick mentioned kind of align? You've seen it the same way he has, especially with your Islanders here?
Yeah, I do. I think so. I think those are all pretty decent shouts. I'll go right into my Sunday bet actually because it kind of goes into what Nick's saying. I like the overtime in Capitals and Rangers was my favorite bet on Sunday at plus 340. I think if this game does play out like that, where you're talking Capitals just look to shut it down from the opening puck and a puck drop, and I think that's what's going to happen. There's just a chance here that this is an absolutely ugly game as the Rangers try to kind of poke their way into the series and figure out like how they're going to have to adjust from that point on. And I think that can end up just being turning this thing into a real big slog. I think that this thing has a couple of different avenues to go to overtime as well. Like on the off chance the Capitals get a lead. We know that the Rangers are really, really good at as a team that's trailing. They're not just a good front runner. This is a team that can erase a 2-0 lead or a 3-1 lead going into the third period pretty quickly. Just throw them a power play or two and they can come back. So plus 340, I think, when you have one team that's going to look to just absolutely shut this thing down, 2 good goalies going at it, I think is a pretty interesting look. So I'll give that one out. On Saturday, my favorite bet is actually the Bruins on the puck line. I think that if Boston wins this thing, it could, if it wins game one, it could blow up for the Leafs a little bit. the goaltending disparity. We've talked about quite a bit on our preview show, whether it's Swayman or Olmark against Samsonov. If Boston is able to be the better team in game one, I do think that this thing has plenty of space to go pear-shaped for the Leafs. I'm not saying that the Bruins are just going to take that and run with it and blow them out every game of the series, but I think in game one, with the way these two teams are coming in, Maple Leafs are a little banged up. Who knows, with that defense core, it's going to take a little while for Keefe to figure out which of his 6 blue liners is the best mix. He's made some interesting decisions in that regard in the playoffs and past. So I do think that there's enough avenues for the Bruins to win this thing by multiple goals that the plus 190 is a decent price.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially I like your overtime look. I look at this packed Sunday slate and I'm thinking who's going to ruin it by making a game go into overtime and bleed into the next one, and you have to pull the second TV out. I think Nashville, Vancouver could be the same thing, and we all have a late night on Sunday night. So, Nick, are you seeing it the same way Leboff is?
Yeah, I am. I see the logic with the Bruins. Personally, I don't love the number overall on that game. I think it's a decent way to target it, but I think it accounts for how shaky Toronto has been. I still think that there's enough flaws for each side that you can point to as to why the series can be closely contested. So I'm not overly interested in game one there. I'm almost leaning towards the Leafs. Honestly, I feel like I still think this series is going to be closer to a pick 'em. And I don't really care that the game's in Boston. We've talked about, last year road teams had a better record altogether in the playoffs. So if you're taking, minus 130s in a series where you thought the game was close to a pick, you wouldn't be doing very good, obviously. You'd be actually down quite a lot given the prices and how much home ice was weighted. So I kind of think that applies here. I think these teams are closer to pick. Yes, the Bruins have a way better decor. They have better goaltending. But Samsonov's a bit of a wild card that could obviously perform to a high level, which I think does tie into Mike's bet too a little bit there. You don't know what you're going to get. Maybe he completely blows up. He obviously has the capability to do that and to get off his game. So I'm really excited to see the way game one looks there. But if anything, I'm almost questioning if maybe you could go Leafs in the first 2 games if they're going to be these kind of numbers and target a split. I think we talked about online change, but I'll throw this out there too. I think that the 2-2 after 4 games in the Bruins series at plus 150 is a really solid look. I think it's going to be closely contested. I think that the Leafs are going to find their ways to get some wins, but I don't ever see them winning this one handily. If you get where I'm coming from there, I think it's going to take 6 or 7 games in that series.
Yeah, you need not just using the series history between these two teams. I feel like 7 is you can pretty much book it for the series. That's at least the way it feels. When you just do the matchup game, comparing forwards, defensemen, goalies, I feel like it just flip flops in every matchup you go. One team has an edge, the next team does, and so that'll certainly be an exciting game one on Saturday night. And before I close this out with a couple picks, I want to let you know that Power Plays is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only, or 18 plus in Kentucky and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, and now North Carolina. Canes fans, gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms and conditions and restrictions apply. Okay, gents, I'll finish us off here. Number 1, we talked about Leafs Bruins. David Pastrnak, anytime goal scorer. There's been a little bit of pressure on this guy to perform in the playoffs. I'm actually going to use a quote from Sheldon Keefe, the coach on the other side, and talking about William Nylander. He said, this guy, I think he's just done with regular season hockey and ready for the playoffs. I think the same could be said about David Pastrnak. He kind of went stale towards the end of the regular season there, but I think plenty of opportunities for Pastrnak in this series. Obviously, the Leafs goaltending situation is still a bit of a head scratcher. So give me David Pastrnak anytime goal scorer. I'll also add in Tampa Bay and Florida to go over 5.5. Look, I think a lot of people are going to think this It's a, pretty much 5.5 on the board all the way down these playoff games, these game ones. But if you look at the regular season, 2 of their 3 games did go over. Florida is one of the most heavily penalized teams in the NHL, and we know Tampa Bay has the best power play. I think there's a lot of PIMs in this series, a lot of power play opportunities, and I'm happy to take a couple sharpshooters with the opportunity to blow this thing open. And then I'll finish it with Nashville, Vancouver. Give me overtime in that one. Really excited for this series, but I think I can see us all with scratchy throats on Sunday night as we're like, okay, second day of this thing and we're already losing sleep. So those are my 3 picks. I will let the rest of you, the jury, start with Nick Martin to decide if I'm guilty or innocent.
Yeah, I don't lose sleep over those, Tim. I'm Mountain Standard Time guy, so those are just right in the prime of the night. But I like the over in the Lightning game too. In particular, I do think that that's the one series where it looks like the initial numbers, if I had to guess, I think near the end of the series, they'll actually be trending higher than they are right now, and with some 6s with juice to the over, compared to the other ones where I think if anything, like maybe the Kane series, you might see some 5s. The Leafs one could go either way, but I think Toronto, it always gets underrated how much when they've gotten into the playoffs, the games are just like 2-1, and they've actually been losing because they can't score in the big moments more commonly than they can't defend in the big moments. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think that looks pretty low. The Lightning haven't been a great defensive team this year. They've been better recently. And then also it's pretty low when you consider if you get any kind of lesser play from Vasilevsky. Same kind of thing. He's been better recently, but that's not something I necessarily want to count on. The Panthers have a lot of offensive upside too. So yeah, I think that 5.5 looks a little low. And I very much am in agreement on that one. Don't hate the Preds look either, but I think definitely feel fairly confident that 5.5 is a little off compared to what we're going to see.
Yeah. Leboff, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think so. I had a feeling you were going to go with the over in this Tampa Florida game, and I think it's a good live over situation too. If it starts slowly, I think you can still back these games, whether it's game 1 or beyond, on the live markets to go over the totals too, because these 2 teams can score in bunches, they can take penalties in bunches. Net polls, all sorts of sorts of chicanery is going to go on in the series, and that always helps when you're looking to back the over. So I fully endorse that one.
All right. Well, there you go, Nick. Because we gave out so many picks, I'll just ask you to just quickly recap your picks here, and then I'll send it to Leboff to recap.
Sure. I'm going with Gensel over 3.5 on Saturday at +150, and going with the first period under 1.5 at -115 in the Caps Rangers game.
For me, I like the Bruins on the puck line, +190 on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night, and I like that Capitals Rangers game to go to overtime at +340.
And I finish this out with David Pastrnak, anytime goal scorer, Tampa and Florida over 5.5, and overtime in Nashville and Vancouver. Guys, game 1s this weekend. Special thanks to our partner over at Bet365, who sponsors this power play segment. And we will see you next week for more playoff handicapping, and follow it up with another power plays next week as well. Enjoy your game 1s, everybody.